His classmates were sent to another world as chosen heroes. He was left behind, alone in modern Japan. No magic quests, no party, just peace and a mysterious status screen no one else can see. While the others train to save a fantasy realm, in the shadows of Tokyo, something unstoppable is growing. Was it a mistake or part of a plan? Let's find out. This story begins with the fact that an assassination attempt was being prepared on the main character Iori Shu. Vigo suggested that his partners remember once again what the mission includes. Their main task is to catch the target. After that, they will put him in a pre-prepared van and make sure that this is exactly the one they need. They give $1 billion for this guy. Meanwhile, the protagonist was walking along the street of his hometown, carrying purchases in his hands. This was not the first time he was hunted, all because he was gifted with special powers. Miller asked his allies if they really needed to direct fire at him. Garrett added that he looked like an ordinary Japanese schoolboy. Gabriel told his partners that he had no idea. Their client did not reveal all the details. He wanted to add something about the rumors that were circulating about the protagonist, but Vigo interrupted him, noting that he had enough chatter. Gabriel briefly answered him that his order was accepted. Vigo continued, "According to the data, there are no bodyguards or agents in the area where they are going to carry out the capture. And their target is moving, completely unsuspecting. Gabriel and he will start the action on the street where the protagonist was walking. Using bullets with tranquilizers and a taser, they will incapacitate him and capture him. Then they will put him in the van, and their mission will be complete." Vigo added that if the victim resists or tries to escape, then Garrett and Miller will join the operation. He was silent for a moment and then called for his allies to begin the operation. Vigo, who was about to attack Shu from behind, mentally apologized to him, saying that he should not take it personally. He extended his hand to the protagonist, intending to approach him and grab him. But at that moment, something incredible happened. Vigo suddenly jumped up, bent into an impossible pose, and fell to the ground, hitting his head. The last thing he thought of was the question, "What's going on?" Gabriel, seeing his partner fall, called out his name, but Vigo didn't answer. Gabriel cursed foully. He shouted in panic that he had no choice but to neutralize the protagonist himself. At that moment, he felt something squelching under his feet. Gabriel realized that he couldn't take a step, as if he was sucked into this liquid that spilled under his feet. He began to shout dirty curses again, and shouted in bewilderment, what was happening here? The liquid was slowly but surely sucking him in completely. At that moment, Garrett saw that everything had gone wrong. He called Miller. Garrett shouted, had Vigo or Gabriel already told him? He thought in panic, why couldn't he shout to them? Garrett turned to Miller again, and reminded him that they only had control of the camera for 15 minutes. This is their last chance. Miller was about to climb down from the roof, but suddenly, he was frozen solid. Garrett, who was watching him from below, was amazed at what had happened. Was he simply frozen? Having overcome his panic, he realized that their deal was ruined. He knew that the price was too high for a simple kidnapping of a person. But he did not think that everything would turn out so badly. He had to run. He had to do it as fast as possible. But before he could take a step, the protagonist put his hand on his shoulder, approaching him from behind. Garrett was finished. At that moment, the protagonist received a call from his younger sister, Kanaze. Kanaze asked him if he had already come from the store. The protagonist, crouching down near the defeated opponents, answered her that he was almost there. She reminded him that today was his turn to clean up, so he should hurry up. The protagonist remembered that this was true. Today was his day. He told his sister that he remembered everything. Shu thought that he should leave anyway to replenish his strength. He would leave them here until some passerby found them. In the end, he decided that he would do so. The protagonist called up the system window to check his status. Looking at his stats, he noticed that he had some mana left. As he thought, creating ghosts was much more expensive. However, he could fight again. He had dealt much more damage than he thought. Maybe his strength was too high. Next time, he could do more than just knock out his opponents. From now on, he should use magic. In that case, he would need much more mana. If he had an auto-generated skill, everything would be much easier. At that moment, his phone beeped. He looked at the screen and saw that his sister had sent him a message. She wrote to him, if he is not home in 5 minutes, he will clean tomorrow. Let him not hang everything on her. The main character cursed. He lost track of time again. He should hurry home. This is how Shu lived now. The day he got the game with statuses and skills, the old Shu was no more. And thanks to the game, he began to live in a completely new way. It happened about a year ago. Then he, as usual, was an unremarkable schoolboy, just lived like everyone else. One day, as usual, he was slowly getting ready for school. His sister told him that they would be late this way. Let him hurry up already. She was puzzled. So much time had passed since they moved here. He should have gotten used to it long ago. He peacefully told her that he understood everything. He was already on his way. After a while, they came to school. He went into his class. His classmates, as always, were doing what they could. One of the boys was asking another how his report card was. The one to whom this question was addressed answered that an angry teacher yelled at him, so his grades leave much to be desired. Two girls were talking about yesterday's stream, in which a participant so cutely put on makeup. Someone was wiping the board. Someone was just standing by the window. When Shu entered the classroom, his classmates greeted him. He also greeted everyone, went to his desk and took out his phone. Tomorrow was already the beginning of summer vacation, so today his class was crazier than usual. While playing the game, he heard his classmates gossiping about him. Like that transfer student, he is as weird as usual. He appeared here strangely. Someone asked what's wrong with him. They whispered something to him. The protagonist thought, finally, when summer starts, he will not have to deal with these idiots. Summer vacation, everyone is waiting for it, and it is about to start. Today will be the same as usual. At least, he thought so. But at that moment, something incredible happened. Suddenly, everyone in the classroom felt sick. Students began to fall to the floor, writhing from headaches and natural throat reflexes. The protagonist wondered in confusion, what was going on here? What was this? Everyone was groaning and screaming that they felt sick. The protagonist also felt his body suddenly twist, and he fell to the floor. At that moment, a magic circle appeared above the blackboard, from which the goddess Ashera appeared. She expressed her congratulations to everyone. All of them, 25 people, were chosen to become heroes who would save this world. The protagonist, not thinking clearly, tried to understand what she was talking about. Ashera, meanwhile, apologized to everyone for bursting in on them so abruptly. She said her name and added that she was the one who would be their guide to the parallel world. His classmates, who had barely come to their senses, were perplexed. A parallel world? What kind of stupid joke was this? Her name was Ashera? The protagonist thought that this was too much. The goddess asked, "Do they have a headache? Do they feel sick? Is that right?" Let them not be surprised. This always happens when they acquire special skills. Without it, they will not be able to survive in the world they are going to. They can also look at their skills by simply saying the word status, but they will figure this out later. The protagonist was surprised. 25 people? The girl showed everyone the seating plan and said that now they, all 25 people indicated on this plan, will go to another world. Many dangers and monsters await them there. After going through these trials, they will become heroes and will be able to save the world. Then the goddess left them, disappearing without a trace. She remembered the piece of paper she had in her hands. It had been made before he transferred here. There were currently 26 people in their class, including him. That meant his name was not written on this layout. Did that mean he wasn't one of them? He cursed. Why wasn't anything opening? No, he wanted to go home. He didn't have time to think about it. He needed to get out of here quickly. At that moment, a large magic circle appeared above the ceiling of the classroom, and a powerful explosion rang out, shattering the glass in their classroom. He was thrown out into the street. The last thing he saw were astonished passersby. The classroom was in disarray. There was smoke everywhere and not a soul in sight. After some time, the protagonist, having come to his senses, did not understand where he was. He saw a man in a white coat and glasses standing in front of him. The protagonist asked him where he was. Instead, the doctor asked him if he was nauseous or motion sick. Shu, listening to himself, answered him that he was fine. The doctor said that he was glad to hear it, but he would have to stay here for a couple more days for observation. The protagonist thought that the hospitals in the other world looked the same as in their world. He asked the doctor again, "Where are they?" The doctor told him that he was in the hospital. He shouldn't worry, his family knows that he is here. They will arrive soon. Shu was surprised. This hospital, it is the largest hospital in his area, and the doctor told him that his family will arrive soon. What kind of nonsense was that with Asher? Did he just have a dream? The protagonist turned to the doctor. Could he tell him how he ended up here? The doctor hesitated and then handed him a package. He added that, to be honest, he hadn't planned to give it to him before he was discharged from the hospital. However, before he opened this package, he should be prepared for what he would see in it, and let him not try to find out all the information through the news. The protagonist promised him that he would do everything like that. He was intrigued. Why did the doctor insist on this so much? He opened the package that contained his phone. MC decided to look into it and saw that a news notification appeared on the screen. Upon opening this message, the protagonist read that there was an explosion in a middle school. 25 students disappeared without a trace. One survivor is unconscious and in critical condition. The circumstances are unknown. The investigation is ongoing. The protagonist could not believe what was written. This simply could not be. Is this really happening? Was this all true? Moving to another world? But how did he survive then? It can't be just because of the seating plan. All this was planned before he transferred to this school? The protagonist did not understand anything. He began to remember what else the goddess said then. She asked everyone about the headache and nausea, and explained that this happens when special powers appear. She also suggested that they check how it works, but later. But he is here, so he was not endowed with special powers? Just in case, the protagonist decided to check what it was really like. He said the word status, and a system window appeared in front of him. Looking at it, MC was shocked. This simply could not be. Even after he was unable to move to another world, he still received powers. These powers will drive him into despair, or destroy him, or on the contrary, help. But be that as it may, it completely turned his life upside down. Meanwhile, near the hospital, the police were holding back the onslaught of reporters. One of them shouted, "He heard about the survivor from that middle school. He was definitely in this hospital. He would like to interview him." The female reporter said that it was strange that only one person survived during that explosion. Isn't it? The police are hiding something from them? The reporters began to shout at the same time that they wanted the truth. The police are hiding something from them? The law enforcement officers only asked everyone to step aside. Only the staff of this hospital are allowed to enter this hospital. At that moment, someone knocked on the door of the ward. The protagonist allowed them to enter. The door opened, and Kanaze ran towards him screaming. She hugged her brother at a running start, burst into tears, and said that she was very glad that he was okay. Then his father came into the ward to see him. He was also very glad that his son had woken up. The father asked him how he was feeling. Was something bothering him? The man looked very worried and tired. The main character told him that everything was fine with him. The doctor said that he had nothing serious. The father exhaled convulsively and said that now he felt such relief. The protagonist felt guilty. His father and sister were so worried about him. As expected, something incredibly strange happened. After his relatives left, the protagonist called up the system window again and looked at his stats again. These abilities that the girl gave him were like a questionnaire from any video game. It seemed like he wouldn't be able to go out anywhere now. He had plenty of time, so he would have time to test everything. Taking a cup, he thought, skill, maybe he should try it. He called up the skill, appraisal. His target was a paper cup. The condition was good, and as an additional detail, it was clear that there was some water in the cup. The protagonist thought in surprise, he did it. He realized it was an appraisal. The protagonist looked around the ward, looking for something else that could be appraised. His gaze fell on the wall clock. He thought, how about this? MC activated appraisal again, but the system returned an error. The evaluation applied to an object more than 2 meters away is only possible at level 2. Shu noted, so it doesn't work at a long distance. How can he raise his level to level 2? He needs to fight monsters? But there are no monsters in this world. Then what can he do? Okay, he will think about it later. The protagonist decided to watch a video in a foreign language. Turning on the video, he realized that the reporter greeted her viewers. She wanted to discuss one important topic with them. The protagonist was sweating from the tension. He understood the foreign reporter. Then he decided to watch a video in German. He activated the universal translation. At that moment, something terrible began to happen to him. His body began to ache and twist. Chills appeared. He lay down on the bed, and the system told him that his limit on using powers was exceeded. Translation of 2 languages and evaluation of 1 object. Soon he will have new experience points. The next day, the protagonist woke up and thought in bewilderment, did he just fall asleep? He tried the skills, then he felt sick, and he felt very weak. The protagonist activated the system window and almost jumped out of bed in surprise. Did his level go up? And from that moment on, he continued to experiment. He learned a lot of new things. First, since he had leveled up, his skills improved. He felt like he could earn points just by training. Also, mana was required to use skills. It was restored after sleep, but if he used it up to the end, side effects such as nausea and a severe migraine would appear. He wondered what would happen if he used his power even when his mana was already running out. He tried this experiment as well, but he felt very sick. Black smoke came out of his mouth. At that moment, Kanaze came to him and was very scared to see her brother in such a state. It seemed like he should have been careful with his mana level. After some time, he was finally discharged from the hospital. Returning home, he happily fell onto his bed and thought that he was finally home. It had been 2 weeks since that day. In the end, the police blamed it on a gas leak at the school. However, many conspiracy theories deny this because he was able to survive. He was not allowed to move on his own until today. Fortunately, he did not have to change his name, family, or their faces. But in the end, he made his father and sister worry. He thought that soon he would be able to repay them. He activated his status again. Throughout his stay in the hospital, he steadily increased his level. By the 5th day, he could already feel how much mana he had without looking at the system. Now, he very rarely experienced side effects. However, since he had maxed out his translation and appraisal skills, he could no longer gain experience points. It seemed that he could acquire new skills with something called SP, because the system displayed information that new skills were available to him that required a certain amount of this very SP. Fire and ice magic required 10 SP each, air, water, and earth magic required 5 SP each. It looked like mana alone would not be enough. He needed to analyze everything. He was in modern Japan now, a place without any monsters. Then how was he supposed to earn this new level? What should he do? At that moment, he received a notification from the game. He looked at the message. Because of all this, he had not logged in for so long. But why should he do this now? Anyway, he already had enough of the advantages, the skills that he had already pumped up. There was no need to pump it up further. After these languid days spent in the hospital, he needed to stop doing this useless nonsense. How good it would be to return to his old life. He looked at his status again and was very surprised. His acquired skills were water and air magic, and also teleportation magic. He thought with delight that now he had these skills too. But why was he so happy about it? Maybe there is no reason for it, after all. He just wants to improve his skills and become even stronger, and he doesn't need anything else? The protagonist decided to test teleportation. He managed to move a water bottle into a trash can. This impressed him greatly. He checked his mana level. It was sufficient. The protagonist thought that being able to move to any place could be useful. But did this mean that he himself could move? Shu stood next to the bed, activated space teleportation, and instantly appeared in another corner of his room. He rejoiced. It was simply unbelievable. He was able to do it. Suddenly, he coughed very hard and got a headache. He thought in confusion, did the magic stop? Looking at his indicators, the protagonist realized that he had run out of mana. Did he really use it all to move the bottle to the trash can? It seemed that he could not use this spell on a permanent basis. But, thanks to this, he could level up again. Suddenly, his head spun and he fell to the floor. He could not even move, let alone get up. Opening his eyes, the protagonist heard the worried voice of his father. His father asked him if he was okay. Shu sat up in bed. Dad breathed a sigh of relief and remarked, "Thank God, he was okay." He slept for a whole day. Was he okay? He scared him by falling asleep on the floor. The protagonist felt awkward in front of his father. He apologized to him and assured his father that he was okay. Was it he who put him on the bed? His father told him that it was. The protagonist thanked his parent from the bottom of his heart. It was time for him to go to work. He asked Shu not to overdo it. The protagonist promised him that everything would be okay. When his father left, the protagonist said that he needed to try harder next time. He activated the system window and was surprised to note that he was now level 13. Now he needed to focus on levels. He needed to try water magic. MC supposed that it was worth doing in the bathroom. Leaving the room into the hallway, he met Kanazi. The protagonist wished her a good morning, but the sister did not respond and slammed the door of her room. The protagonist thought sadly, he must have caused a lot of trouble for her when he was in the hospital. Surely she hated him now. Entering the bathroom, Shu noted that he needed to make sure Kanaze did not notice him. He activated a new skill, water magic, and a small drop of water appeared in the air, which immediately burst, splashing his face. The protagonist thought disappointedly that this was certainly not what he expected. He chose this skill because he thought it would be useful, but it seemed he was wrong. The protagonist bumped his head into the wall and noted that he had a bad feeling about this. Suddenly, he heard a strange sound behind him. Turning around, the protagonist saw a huge stream of water that was swirling like a wave. Before the protagonist could understand anything, the water balloon burst, making such a terrible sound that it echoed throughout the entire house. Kanaze, who was sitting at the table in her room, heard it. She exclaimed, "What was that again?" Going downstairs, she shouted to her brother, "Did he hear?" It was such a loud sound. Looking into the bathroom, the girl saw the protagonist sitting on the floor in a large puddle of water. He apologized to her and asked her, "Did he scare her?" The sister asked MC what he was doing. The protagonist lied to her that he got into the shower while still half asleep. Nothing happened to his body, right? He examined himself and noted that he was fine. Kanaze, having made sure that he was fine, left. Shu wondered if she was really worried about him after all, although she had been so angry a minute ago. But it scared him too. Just as he imagined the water rushing out like a flood, such a huge water ball-shaped thing flew out. In addition, he suddenly felt tired and weak. Opening the system window, he noticed that his MP level had dropped significantly, so he should be careful when using it. After that, the protagonist conducted many experiments and eventually found out some things. Magic skills are highly dependent on the user's imagination, and most importantly, the MP spent on a magic skill is determined by the scale of imagination. He tried using water magic again with little imagination. Then the protagonist decided to erase it and try again, only this time, water path. The water cloud became larger. Shu looked at his indicators and realized that with minimal MP consumption, he can achieve successful activation of the skill. The protagonist noted that this was great news. The setting was complete. This was now his way to steadily gain experience. But how much effort he spent? If he makes a mistake with his imagination, the skill will not work. Or, on the contrary, too much MP is spent. Shu summed up, Be that as it may, the main thing now is for him not to forget this feeling and to use skills every day to gain experience. After some time, during another training session of the protagonist, the system notified him that they had reached the required amount of experience. His level was increased. The protagonist again turned to the system and exclaimed in surprise, like, "This is what a level increase looks like." It was the first time he saw it in real life. Shu realized that his body characteristics had also increased significantly. By the way, when he underwent a medical examination immediately after transferring to a new school, the results were quite average for the country. If it was level 1, then how much have his physical abilities improved now? At that moment, his sister knocked on his door. She asked him if she could come in. Of course he allowed her. The sister opened the door slightly. She looked embarrassed. She wanted to tell him about this morning. The protagonist asked her if she meant the shower. Kanaze replied that she did not want to say that. She hesitated and then suggested that he forget about it. She was going to buy groceries for lunch and dinner. Would he come with her? Shu expressed his willingness to go with her. He needed to prepare. He thought that she was definitely angry for the inconvenience caused. After all, he was just sitting in the hospital without going anywhere. Unlike him, Kanaze had to cancel her classes so as not to attract attention to herself. The protagonist decided that he would leave the stat check for later. And today, he would focus on paying back for the 2 weeks of inconvenience that he caused her. Meanwhile, Kanaze stood outside the door, thinking about her own things. She remembered how she and her father came to the hospital. Shu seemed to be still asleep since yesterday. He often experienced nausea and its after effects, and then he would faint and sleep for a long time. Earlier, the teacher told her that there had been an accident at her brother's school. Remembering this, tears appeared in her eyes. She thought that her brother was an idiot. In July, on a certain day, all the newspapers were full of news that a mysterious explosion occurred in the middle school. Fortunately, one male student who was found survived and is already recovering. 25 other students are still missing. Meanwhile, in another world, Princess Priscilla appeared in front of the protagonist's classmates and greeted the 25 valiant heroes. She introduced herself to them and added that she was the princess of this country. The classmates who were on the magic circle looked at her in bewilderment. The princess said that from today on, they will serve the kingdom of Sentil in the matter of destroying the Demon King. After some time, they arrived at a place in the forest for another training. One of the classmates said to the other that they were suddenly transported here. And then some fight with the Demon King. Long live his majesty. In general, nothing is clear. But skills and magic are a bit cool, don't you think? The interlocutor noted that he understood him. School was just stressful, and here, maybe, it's even better. The coach shouted at them to stop chatting. Let them focus on training. The allies fell silent and reported to him that they understood everything. The second classmate noted, today is a hunt for low-level monsters, right? He already wanted to use spectacular magic. At this moment, Seiya Amagi's system window reported that the required amount of experience had been reached. His level was raised. The first classmate exclaimed. He raised his level again. After all, they had only recently arrived here, and he was earning experience so quickly. It was not for nothing that he was their class president. Meanwhile, Amagi's level was 10. A classmate turned to the class president and asked him what skill he had learned now. Amagi demonstrated ice magic to her. The girl admiringly noted that it was very cool. The coach said, as expected of him, he was head and shoulders above everyone else. It seemed that he would overtake them very soon. Amagi sheepishly replied that he was still far from perfect. The coach advised him to make sure that his MP did not run out. If he lost all his magical energy, he would fall right on the spot. If this happened in front of monsters, he would become completely defenseless, and that would be the end of him. In any situation, let him use magic to a minimum. Amagi told him that he understood that. After all, he was the best even in theory. The coach laughed and noted that it was encouraging, but they also needed to try hard to keep up. It was time for them to go on the next hunt. At the same time, the protagonist was testing another skill, but something went wrong. He cursed. He tried to activate ice magic, but he overdid it with his imagination again. Ice was everywhere. He thought it was because of the heat. Because of this, he made a mistake in the settings. The system informed him that he had reached the required amount of experience. His level had increased. The protagonist did not take this very joyfully. His level is 35. The protagonist thought about it. 3 months had passed since the explosion at the school, and his leveling was going smoothly. I wonder if more can be done. From the news, he learned that after the mysterious explosion, the use of the school was considered unsafe, and all students switched to online learning. Thanks to this, he managed to avoid unnecessary attention in the new class and focus on leveling up. Although before that, he had a hard time. He was able to successfully use spatial movement magic, but sometimes he ran out of MP at the point of movement, or he tried to test healing magic, and his sister misunderstood him. Now it seemed funny, but at that moment, not so much. Shu decided to learn a new skill. An angry sister sent him a message to remember to go get rice. Today, it's his turn to do housework. The protagonist thought that they only have one parent and he comes home late from work. Therefore, cooking dinner, cleaning, washing, and other chores are divided between them in turns. He will have to go shopping. Maybe there is a skill that will make things easier? He sighed heavily. He can't go to the store with magic, and he doesn't have enough MP for it. At that second, he saw the inventory skill in the system. MC was surprised. Is this something like the storage system from games? The system told him that everything is ready. The inventory skill has been learned. The protagonist tried to learn more about this skill, but the information from the appraisal ability doesn't really explain anything. And there's a storage limit. Can he only carry one item? He tried to activate the inventory. Suddenly, a large glowing cube appeared in front of him. Shu was surprised. Is this the inventory? Okay, then he'll try putting the shopping bag in there. I wonder if he's doing it right? The protagonist brought the bag to the cube, and it instantly disappeared from his hands, moving into the cube. He noted in amazement. It seemed to work pretty well. If only the storage limit were increased, it would be priceless. The protagonist remembered the receipt. Was it still in the bag? Did that mean that he could put the bag with the purchases in it in there? Leaving the store and moving away from people's eyes, he activated the inventory, and his hands were free. All the purchases, along with the bag, were in the storage. He said that everything was ready. The system announced the list of contents to him. The protagonist happily noted that everything was great. Everything was fine. MC conducted a test as usual. This inventory at his level can only store one item. Mug 1 piece, pencil 1 piece, book cover 1 piece, pencil case 1 piece, garbage bag 1 piece, plastic packaging, chopsticks, automatic pencil and eraser. He looked at his MP40 energy consumption. The protagonist noted that it was quite acceptable for practical use. It was a successful skill. He was lucky. It was time for him to go home. Walking down the street, he heard someone call out to him. Fujisawa Haruna was standing in front of him. She noted that they were seeing each other so close for the first time. The protagonist looked at her in confusion. Who is this? The girl told him her name. Maybe this name would remind him of something? Shu began to feverishly remember what this name was. Finally, he remembered. It was their class monitor. The girl said that he had recently transferred to their class. She was glad that he finally remembered her. She asked him if he was buying dinner. The protagonist answered her that he was. He thought that they hadn't even talked before. Did she really want to ask him about that incident? The protagonist asked her if she needed something. Haruna hesitated with her answer, then said that she accidentally noticed him and just decided to say hello. Since they switched to online lessons, she had hardly talked to any of her classmates. But maybe she chose the wrong moment? If so, let him forgive her. The protagonist answered her that it was not so. He thought that he had only seen her in class, but she seemed to be a serious and diligent student. It seemed that he was too suspicious. He apologized to her. He thought that she wanted to ask him about that incident at school, so he became wary. Haruna said that she understood him. It was difficult for him, right? He shouldn't worry. She wouldn't pry into his personal life. She thought everyone has something they don't want to talk about. The protagonist noted her thoughtfulness. The girl came to her senses and apologized to him for keeping him late. She said goodbye to him, adding that they would see each other in class tomorrow. Shu wondered, what was that just now? He decided to check the girl just in case, and so he used the skill evaluation. The subject was 14 years old. Her condition was malnutrition, internal hemorrhaging, emotional disorder. Additional information stated that due to violence, happiness, and other factors, information and perception change. The protagonist wondered what this meant. When he came home, he began to put away the groceries. Kanazi, seeing the amount of purchases, asked him in surprise, did he bring all this home himself? He answered her that he had been training for a long time, so he could easily cope with this. His sister chuckled in bewilderment. The protagonist's thoughts were occupied with his classmate. He thought, that assessment result is not a mistake, right? Her tired expression, ridiculously warm clothes for such a hot day. Her behavior seemed to be scared, hurrying home. And as a farewell, he noticed only for a moment, traces of bruises on her wrist. It made him feel disgusted, but without any evidence, he is just a classmate. He could not do anything, so he better forget about it. He looked at his sister and saw that she was sitting sadly on the couch and looked very sad. The protagonist asked her why she was sighing. Did something happen? Kanade said that she found out today that Haruna, with whom she was close, quit the dojo. She was prepared for this, because she had not come there for several months, but still, she was very upset. The protagonist answered her that he understood everything. He thought that since Kanade was upset about this, it meant that she was a wonderful person. He wanted to meet her again. The protagonist clarified the girl's last name. Kanade confirmed that it was her. She was very strong, kind, and everyone respected her. They said that she studied in the same school as him and was the class representative. The protagonist asked his sister if she knew why this girl stopped coming. Kanade did not know this. It seemed that she had some difficulties at home. Shu remembered his assessment. Because of the violence and threats, her physical and psychological state is exhausted. Everything is as he thought. He should check. He asked his sister, "Is it her turn to do the housework tomorrow?" She sadly answered him that it is. The protagonist told her that he will do everything for her tomorrow. Let her rest properly. Kanaze was very surprised by his words, but did not object. The next day, the teacher informed his students that the lesson was over for today. He asked Haruna to give a command to the class. The girl did as he asked and thanked him for the lesson. Teacher expressed his gratitude to her in return. Haruna was just about to turn off the computer when suddenly she received a message from the protagonist. He sent her a friend request and asked her if she knew a girl named Kana. The answer came that the girl accepted his request. He thought, it seems that this is not a mistake. And then he received a response from her. She asked him if he was Kana's brother by any chance. The protagonist answered her that he was. His sister told him something about her. Haruna asked him if he was going to the supermarket again today. She wrote back that, basically, yes he was. The girl suggested that if it was convenient for him, he could come at 5 p.m. She would answer all his questions. The protagonist happily thought that it looked like he would be able to contact her. The protagonist looked at the time and thought that he should hurry. He hoped that everything would work out for him. He asked for his status and decided that he would practice on the way. After that, she waited for him at the place, and the main character apologized to her. Did he make her wait? Haruna replied that it was not so. She was apologizing for calling him. She thought that she needed to go shopping soon. The girl asked him how his sister was. Shu answered that she was upset because she heard that she, Haruna, had left the kendo club. It seemed that Kanaze had become very attached to her. The girl drawled that she understood everything. She apologized to the protagonist. His sister must be having a hard time. She let her down. Shu asked her the main question. It was because of the situation at home, right? There was nothing to be done. The girl told him that he was right. The protagonist noted that she seemed very depressed. Judging by the results of the assessment, her home environment was probably close to the worst possible. He said that since his sister was also worried, if something happened or there were difficulties, she should tell him. Was she okay with that? They shook hands, and the girl told him that she understood. Haruna apologized to him. It was time for her to go. The protagonist did not detain her and said goodbye to her until tomorrow. When the protagonist returned home, his sister asked him if he was home. Shu told her that he was back. He added that he had just met the Haruna she had been talking about. Kanaze exclaimed in surprise. What did he say? He had met Haruna? The protagonist said that he had. She had said hello to her. His sister asked him if she looked okay. Shu noticed that the girl looked a little tired, but he thought she was okay overall. Kanaze noted that she understood everything. The protagonist went to his room, eager to test his abilities. He sat down on his bed and activated tracking and search magic. This was the skill he had learned yesterday to find out more about Haruna. This ability had two main effects. The first was the ability to track the specified object. By the way, this magic only worked on what the user had touched. It was good that he had managed to establish contact. He couldn't find out all the details about nearby objects with the search, but this missing information could be compensated for by combining skills. He called for evaluation. It was not a waste of time to do the tests before he fell asleep. Now he will be able to understand what is happening with the class leader. But what he saw did not please him at all. On the contrary, he exclaimed with bitterness and amazement, "Is this what is happening around Haruna?" He had little time. He began to think about what he could do for her. At this time, Haruna was busy in the kitchen at home. Her mother came to her, as always, in high spirits, and noted like, "She is here." This was very good for her. The mother told her to go to the store and buy her some beer. Haruna answered her discontentedly that she was a minor, so she could not. The mother cursed and let go of the topic. The girl, washing the dishes, thought bitterly, since when did their house become like this? The mother drank constantly, not caring that she had children and responsibilities. And it all started with some trifle. Maybe something snapped between their parents because of that fight. Over time, the fights between their father and mother became daily. Eventually, they stopped even talking to each other. But even then, they at least cared about them a little. At least, that's what it looked like. But one day, when Haruna had already entered middle school, her father stopped coming home. The next day, he didn't come back either. And the next. And the next. Since then, she hasn't seen him again. He left them forever. A year has passed since their father disappeared. And their mother has completely lost interest in her children. Now, household chores and caring for her younger brothers fell entirely on her shoulders. Her mother distracted the girl from her sad thoughts. She needed Haruna to at least buy something to go with the beer. The girl had nowhere else to go, so she agreed. Haruna added that she still needed to buy groceries for dinner, so she would be late. Her mother reacted indifferently to this. The girl took the purse and thought that she needed to go quickly. She did everything she was told, but she could no longer even look this woman, who was their mother, in the face. Opening her purse, Haruna was surprised to see that it was empty. She asked her mother if she spent the household money. Her mother chuckled and apologized to her. She just didn't have enough money, so she had to take from this amount. The girl asked her in amazement, what was she talking about? Her mother brushed her off and told her to figure it out herself somehow. Haruna felt helpless. Once a month, her father left her money for living. This was all that kept her and her brothers afloat. And this woman, without a twinge of conscience, spent everything they had. Haruna almost cried from resentment, but it was all useless. There was no point in being angry with her mother. At that moment, the woman noticed that she almost forgot to tell her the main thing. Kajiwara is coming again today, so let her be a cutie. The girl's blood ran cold with horror. She left the house and dejectedly went to the store. She hated going home. She couldn't just barge into her friend's house, and she had brothers. If it was just her mother, she would have put up with it. But that man, it was pure hell. She shuddered when the protagonist caught up with her and called out to her. The girl was surprised to see him. He looked at her carefully and asked her if she was okay. She looked pale. The girl told him that she was okay, she was just thinking for a while. She laughed, but her laugh was artificial. She noticed that they met again. Shu told her that it was true. Lately, he's been doing the shopping instead of Kana. Haruna said that now she understood everything. She asked him about his sister. How is she? Still upset, huh? The protagonist told her that Kanaze wanted to talk to her. Could she call his sister today? The class rep thought for a moment. Kanaze got along well with her, and she says she would like to see each other again, but if she called and started complaining, it would be bad. The protagonist, noticing the emotions on her face, said that no one was forcing her to do this. It's just that if she wanted to, she could call. Kanaze would be happy. He continued that his sister wanted to be the one the girl could rely on. So, in his opinion, she should also try to trust her without worrying too much. Haruna looked at the protagonist in surprise. Rely, that's a good word. In fact, she had no one to rely on. The girl answered him that she would call Kanaze, and now it was time for her to go. They said goodbye, and the girl left. Haruna walked and thought about Shu. He rarely shows his emotions, so it was very difficult to understand what he was thinking, but he is as kind as his sister. Returning home from the store, Haruna, after some hesitation, called Kanaze. The protagonist's sister picked up the phone and was surprised by the person calling her. She, not believing her ears, asked again, "Is it Haruna calling?" The girl laughed and answered that yes, it was her. "Can Kanaze talk now?" The girl assured her that, of course, she could. How wonderful it was to talk to her again. Kanaze suggested that she switch to video communication. She really wanted to see her. Haruna did not immediately figure out how to do it. When she finally managed to do it, both girls were so happy for each other. Kanaze began to tell her about her affairs. She added that the move she showed her, she was finally able to do it. Haruna was very happy for her. She thought that Kanaze had not changed at all. How long had it been since she felt so calm? The girl was silent for a moment, and then hesitantly said she had heard that things were difficult at home, so if she needed anything, she could always turn to her. She wanted to help her. Haruna was touched by Kanaze's concern. For a whole year, she had not told anyone about what was going on at home. She did not want their situation to be known, and she was also afraid that any action she took could only make things worse. But this could not go on. She had to say it. Determination took hold of the girl. She began to tell her interlocutor that, in fact, she had something to tell. But Kanaze made a surprised face and interrupted her. There was a man standing behind her. Was that her father? At that moment, Kajiwara addressed her in an ominous voice as the class president and said that it was not good of her to ignore him. He reached out and grabbed her hand. She said his name in fear. Kanaze anxiously asked her what was wrong, but the girl could not answer her. Kajiwara asked her, "Is this a call?" He hoped it wasn't a guy? That scumbag was their homeroom teacher. He had become their mother's second husband. He lived in their house and bullied her. He was the worst of all scumbags. The man threw her to the floor. Haruna fell. He said that he should give a lesson in discipline. She understood that his real target was not her mother, but her. And knowing this, her mother still continued to let him into the house. Her brothers came running to her screams and started calling her. Haruna thought with disgust that all this was disgusting. She had to run, but what could she do against a grown, healthy man? The brothers cried bitterly, looking at their sister. She thought again, since when did their house become like this? The man began to strangle her. The girl in a hoarse voice asked her brothers to go to their room. She promised them that everything would be fine. But the brothers seemed to freeze in place. They were very afraid for their sister. She shouted at them to go faster, and they ran away. Haruna turned away. Kajiwara shouted at her not to turn away from him. He asked her why the class president didn't understand. He was seriously thinking about her future. If she stayed in this house, everything would only get worse. But if she was his, a happy life awaited her. She understood that, right? The girl thought in despair, why could such a scum of society call himself a teacher? Such a demon in human form, why? How tired she was of all this. She begged, at least someone would help her. At that moment, something strange began to happen. A strong wind rose in the room. The teacher seemed to be twisted and thrown aside. It was the protagonist who came to the girl's aid. He activated the wind spell. The protagonist ran up to the girl, called her by name, and told her to run. Haruna called him by name in amazement. Why was he here? Shu told her that now was not the time to ask questions. She needed to leave quickly. The girl did not make him repeat it 3 times, and ran out of the room. Kajiwara came to his senses after the blow, and asked the protagonist who he was. Did he want to take Haruna away from him? The protagonist angrily noted that this bastard did not even know that he was his student. But this guy is really scary. When a drunk adult man tries to kill someone seriously, it is not a joke. The protagonist saw a knife flash in the hands of the homeroom teacher. Screaming for Shu to die, the man rushed at him with a knife in his hands. The protagonist threw him back again with a wind spell, and thought that running away from here in fear would be too pathetic. The teacher cursed him filthily and swung his knife again. Shu used a teleportation spell, and the knife from the man's hand moved to another place. Kajiwara stared in amazement first at his hand, and then at the protagonist. He said in confusion, "What was that? Where did he put his knife?" The protagonist answered him like, "Who knows where it is now? He needed to buy some time." Hearing about the call from Kana, he called the police before teleporting here. They will be here soon. Hearing a sound in the corridor, the protagonist said with relief that they have arrived. The teacher grinned unkindly. Instead of the police, his friend named Yasunori flew into the room with a baton on his shoulder. The protagonist stared at him in surprise. Kajiwara reproachfully told his friend that he was late. Yasunori began to justify himself to the teacher, saying that he had let the guy go, let him forgive him. Shu, meanwhile, scanned the teacher's friend using the assessment. The protagonist immediately learned that the man's name was Hamada Yasunori. He was 26 years old. His condition showed addiction. The note said that in his youth he went against his parents, got involved with bad company, and became addicted. He even had a criminal record because of it. Shu noted in surprise, this guy definitely does not belong next to their middle school teacher. He already knew about Kajiwara's circle, but he did not expect to run into him now. But there was nothing to be done. The protagonist felt a little weak. Kajiwara told his friend that, first, they need to deal with this little guy. Yasunori replied that he understood him. The protagonist noted that he had less than 10% of his mana left. This was bad. If he only teleported the bat, he would still be beaten by those two. He was doomed. Yasunori swung the bat and shouted at the protagonist to die. Shu realized, with his current stats, it looked like this was his end. Kajiwara viciously supported his friend. That's it. Let him break all his bones. Yasunori dealt a powerful blow to the protagonist, but was astonished. His club shattered into pieces and the protagonist stood there alive and unharmed. The men were speechless from surprise. Finally, Yasunori shouted, "What the hell?" Shu, meanwhile, was as astonished as his opponents. What was going on? Now, instead of a blow, he only felt a slight touch. While the scumbags were trying to figure out what the hell this was and what was wrong with Shu's body, the protagonist understood. All the status indicators he had raised were reflected on his body. He decided to check one more thing. He approached Yasunori and flicked his finger on his forehead. He said contentedly, as expected, all the status indicators he had raised so far were still reflected on his body. Kajiwara asked in surprise, what did he do? The protagonist muttered, he just flicked him. Maybe he should give him one too then. Kajiwara began to crawl away in fear and asked him to stop. Shu made a hand gesture and after a while, police cars were parked near the building where the fight was taking place. The police entered the room and saw Kajiwara's motionless body. Meanwhile, Shu was standing near the building when suddenly Fujisawa called out to him and said with a smile on her face that they hadn't seen each other for a long time after everything that had happened. Kajiwara and his friends were arrested. The mother, who was involved with the gang, was also arrested. Because of this, all the cruelty that Fujisawa had suffered was brought to light. The protagonist asked how her brothers were. Fujisawa handed him a phone with a photo and said that they were living with their grandparents, so they were feeling well. It was the grandparents who had not been in touch with them for a long time, who were the first to sound the alarm when they learned of their situation, and they were worried that they had not heard from them for a long time. Shu looked at the phone happily and thought, they are very kind people. He asked, but is that really good? After all, she came back here alone. Fujisawa smiled and added that she really has a lot of memories of that house, and besides, she wants everyone to be together at the graduation. Although the grandparents were against it, she still convinced them. Shu thought that he was worried, but if that was what she wanted, then it was right. Fujisawa asked about those people who say that they tell some nonsense during interrogation. They say that they were attacked by a monster. Shu thought about it, It seems that when Kajiwara was brought in for questioning, he remembered him and started shouting that he was a monster. Since no evidence of his involvement was found at the crime scene, everyone decided that he was just drunk and hallucinating. Suddenly, Kana came up to him and he said that she was late. Kana exclaimed in displeasure that her brother was too loud. She happily turned to Fujisawa and exclaimed, "This is not about that. They have not seen each other for a long time." She smiled and agreed with her. She is glad that she is okay. Kana admiringly said that since her return, she has become much more cheerful. Today, Fujiwara will go to the dojo again after several months of absence. He thought about how happy Kana looked. Kana asked the protagonist to hang out the laundry until she returned, after which she and Fujiwara went on business. The protagonist sighed heavily and said, "It's time to go home." Suddenly, he heard Fujiwara ask Kana to wait a bit, and she came up to the protagonist. Shu asked her what happened. She approached him and whispered who he really was. The protagonist looked at her and said that he was an ordinary boy, a middle school student. Fujiwara grinned and approached his ear and asked, "So that day, is this their secret?" She thanked him with a smile and said goodbye until next week. Shu awkwardly looked after her. According to the protagonist, this was the first time he used his abilities to help a person. Unlike the other world, there are no real monsters in this world, and he thought that such cruel events are unlikely to happen here. He thought so. Meanwhile, Shu deftly moved around the night city and climbed onto the roof and said in surprise, "It really worked, and the alienation magic seems to work as it should." He summoned a system window that had all of his stats and asked where they were going next. According to the protagonist, it had been almost 2 years since the teleportation incident. 26 boys and girls who had received status from the one who called themselves a Shera. Although in different places, each of them was diligently leveling up in their own way. A classmate shouted at everyone to get a hold of themselves. There was a monster in front of them, and the boy asked in fear, could they really defeat such a monster? The knight ordered everyone not to be afraid and to follow his instructions. He exclaimed about the enemy attack and ordered the tanks to move forward. The mages lined up and used their skills. The knight ordered to cut off physical attacks, block magic attacks, and stop him. The support should attack with spells and shooting skills. They attacked the monster again and again, but it remained unharmed. So Rin and Ryoga moved to attack. They combined their attacks of instant flash wind and great waterfall, attacking the enemy with powerful energy. The knight's sword was enveloped in magic, and he asked the spirit of light to fill his sword with power. He shot a heavenly sacred rupture at the monster and struck the enemy. The knight approached the monster and looked at it in horror. It was still alive. He swung his sword and stuck it right into the monster's eye, and the others joyfully began to rejoice in the victory. After some time, a feast began in the castle, and the man decided to give a toast in honor of the victory over the manticore. Those present were happy about the banquet, but Seiya was standing nearby and drinking his drink. Suddenly, Priscilla approached him and asked if the main character at the banquet should be standing here. He respectfully said that Her Highness should not pay attention to him, and she asked if the hero should not be among the guests. Seiya sadly noted that he was somehow embarrassed, because today's fight could have been done better. If everything had gone smoothly, Sujiya and Hinoki would have too. Suddenly, Rin appeared next to him and said, so that's why he was so gloomy. She told him not to take on everything just because he was a hero. And Sujiya and the others also told him to have fun at the party for them. They won, so they can rest today? Seiya smiled and added, then he won't hold back. Priscilla then suggested that they walk around the hall together, because today they were serving rare desserts. Rin exclaimed that he was going with her. The guy watched them with displeasure and said, lucky guy between two beauties, he wishes he could flirt like that. He suggested that his friends level up and achieve success, then the girls will look at them. So they decided to have fun to the fullest today. She was sitting on the edge of the roof and said that there was a good view from there. With wind magic, you can even climb to the 10th floor. He looked at his wristwatch and asked, is it already that late? It's time for him to go back, because tomorrow is the entrance ceremony. 2 years later, the protagonist straightened the tie of his school uniform, and according to him, he became a senior. He said that he was not used to it, and Kana asked if her brother was ready. Shu looked at her in surprise and she asked if something happened. The protagonist noted that it was so strange for him to hear her call him brother. Kana asked him to move over and noted that this sailor suit suited him. Shu ran out of the house and thought that adolescence was in full swing. Walking down the street, the protagonist began to shiver and said how cold it was outside. Kana gave him a hand warmer, and he thanked her. He thought that she seemed kind, but if he told her this, he would go crazy. Shu noted that he would go down this road, and Kana warned him not to mix up the class and not run into the first one. According to the protagonist, becoming a senior, he lived relatively calmly, but not for long. The protagonist was walking alone down an alley when he suddenly felt someone's presence behind him. Bandits lined up behind him, and the guy asked if he was the guy who beat up Yasunori. Shu turned around and thought, those guys again. Apparently, after the incident with Kajiwara, he acted carelessly and did not clean up the consequences. The protagonist noted that they were wrong, and the guy said with displeasure that he should stop lying. He grabbed him by the collar of his uniform and exclaimed that they knew it was him. After a while, the bandit was lying on the ground and Shu said, "Seriously? Today is the entrance ceremony and they are causing him problems." He used healing magic and perception suppression magic, noting that now he would not remember what had happened here. Meanwhile, she was walking down the school corridor and looking for the right class. He entered the office and, noticing an empty seat, thought how lucky he was that the seat was in the very corner. The homeroom teacher had not arrived yet, so he could relax a little. The class started whispering after they noticed Kuan at the door of the classroom. The girl looked at her with admiration and thought how cute she was, just like a doll. Was she an angel or something? Shu glanced at her and thought, "You can tell she's a beauty." She nodded happily at him, and he nodded back. The protagonist noticed his classmates' gazes and awkwardly thought that everyone was looking at him like that. Rintaro whispered to him and asked, "Is the neighbor really pretty, right?" Shu looked at him questioningly and hesitantly agreed with him, thinking, "What kind of guy is this?" Rintaro happily said that they were lucky with the place. She even smiled. He introduced himself to the protagonist and asked him to get acquainted. Shu introduced himself in response and he begged if they could switch places. The protagonist, confused, asked what he was talking about. Suddenly, Hinami entered the classroom and wished everyone a good morning, noting that it seemed like everyone was already here. She introduced herself as their homeroom teacher and hoped for a good year with them. Hinami asked everyone to take their seats and they would start with self-introductions. First would be Aizawa, and then Shu. The protagonist got up from his desk and introduced himself. He is into games and knows how to cook, so he hopes for a good year. Another faceless introduction, and finally it was the turn of the one everyone was looking at. Hinami called out to Kuan, and she got up from her desk and briefly introduced herself. Shu looked at her in confusion and wondered if he was imagining things or if she had just hinted that he shouldn't approach her. He and Kuan are from different worlds. It's unlikely that they would have anything in common. At home, during dinner, Kana asked her brother how he was doing at school. Shu replied that everything was fine as usual. She remained silent, and then asked him not to get involved in any more incidents. He smiled and asked if she was worried about him. Kana ordered him to shut up with displeasure, and Shu said that everything was fine because such dangerous things would not happen again. After a while, the protagonist was moving along the rooftops of the night city. He stopped and used perception blocking magic. The protagonist began to warm up and said that he would try today too. According to him, a week had passed since the entrance ceremony, and, as usual, after dinner, he slipped out of the house and began the experiment. He thought that he would try to test how far he could go with his current stamina today. In that case, it would be better to head towards the mountains instead of the train station. Shu found himself in the middle of the forest and looked around and said that he had come quite far, but he still had some strength. Suddenly, he heard a sound and hid behind the bushes and asked what was going on in the wilderness, when suddenly he noticed monsters and a girl who was fighting in secret from everyone. He thought in surprise, what was that? There was a monster with horns ahead and Kuan? Was she serious? A powerful stream of energy burst out of Kuan's palm and struck the monsters. Shu thought in admiration, did she do it? Suddenly, the monsters began to surround her from all sides and she angrily clenched her teeth. The protagonist watched quietly from the side and thought, are there still so many of them left? Fighting so many seemed too much even for him. He was sure that he didn't understand a single thing that was happening here. But if he left her alone now, he would definitely regret it for the rest of his life, so he had decided. Kuan stood among the monsters and thought about how there were still so many of them. Several small demons had broken out of the seal and fled to the mountains, so she was ordered to destroy them. That was the order she had received from the main house. Destroying small spirit-level demons was something she had encountered many times before, so she came with her normal equipment without asking questions. And this was the result. A large demon with horns appeared in front of her. According to her, it was a large demon that was looking at this situation as if enjoying it. From the demonic aura emanating from it, it was either one of the 4 heavenly kings or someone close to them in strength. This was the real demon that had escaped from the seal. The main house knew about this and still sent her alone? She would most likely never know the truth, but that was not important. Kuan took out a seal and attached it to her hand, saying that these demons can't be allowed to roam free and do whatever they want. She angrily said that she would take them with her and use the spell deployment skill, when suddenly Shu appeared in front of her. Kuan called out to him in displeasure and exclaimed, she doesn't know who he is, but he needs to get out of here now. The protagonist used magic and gathered the small monsters into a pile and threw them aside. Kuan wondered in surprise. What was that? These movements are completely inhuman, but there is not a drop of demonic aura emanating from him. Is he human? The main demon asked in displeasure, How dare he kill his cute subordinates? He got up from the ground and grabbed the blade. Kuan tried to look at the protagonist's face and said that she can't even see his expression. She can't see his expression from the position where this huge demon is standing. His face should be clearly visible. But what does this mean? The demon swung the blade at Shu and exclaimed, "None of this matters, so he'll just kill him." He attacked the protagonist, and after the dust cleared, the demon only noticed the blade stuck in the ground. He looked questioningly to the side where Shu stood, who had parried the attack. Kuan wondered, did he really just parry that huge sword with one fist? An ordinary person simply couldn't do that. The demon asked him to wait and asked, did he want treasures? For example, those prayer beads on his hand could be sold for 10 gold coins, no less. He asked to leave him alive, and then he would take him to the storage where all those treasures were collected. Shu thought about it, when suddenly Kuan asked him not to listen to him. Demons are vile creatures who deceive people in order to take their lives and wealth. The demon exclaimed in displeasure that this girl was babbling too much. Shu swung his hand and hit the monster in the jaw, sending it high into the sky. Suddenly, its body exploded in the air and its limbs fell to the ground. Kuan wondered in confusion what kind of incredible out-of-bounds power was this. She now wanted to escape as soon as possible, but first she had to make sure if he was human and an enemy of humans. She stood up from the ground and tried to call out to him, when suddenly the protagonist looked at his watch and disappeared, activating a portal. Kuan was left alone in the middle of the forest and wondered what the hell was going on. Meanwhile, Shu yawned and remarked that he was so sleepy. Rintaro smiled and asked if he was yawning again. The protagonist looked at him questioningly and answered, because he was doing all sorts of things yesterday. He smiled slyly and asked if he found any indecent videos. Shu showed him his wristwatch and said that it was broken and he was trying to fix it. Rintaro glanced at the watch and thoughtfully noted that nothing seemed to be broken. The protagonist replied that it might be, but the thing started beeping like an alarm at some random time, without any settings. Rintaro was surprised and asked if it was still so beautiful and why did it suddenly break. The protagonist thought that most likely yesterday, when he smashed that monster, he probably hit it too hard, but he wouldn't say that. He added that it looked like he needed to buy a new one. Rintaro wondered how the watch still worked. If he were to change it, would he give it to him? Shu said that he would sell it to him for 3,000 yen. He asked in surprise, did he even want to take money? The protagonist exclaimed that he had already given him a good discount. The protagonist thought about the calm, everyday life, as if everything from yesterday was just an illusion. He sits and begins to think. And did he imagine all of this? When Kuan suddenly entered the room with a bandaged leg and a classmate asked if she was injured, she smiled and said that she just twisted her leg and asked them not to worry since there was nothing serious about it. Shu looked at her and thought, everything that happened yesterday was reality. And yet, did it really happen? He used the evaluation skill, and the system board showed him information about Kuan. The protagonist noted that using the evaluation on a person allows you to find out what condition this person is in. But everything that concerns this condition is just notes. In other words, who is Kuan, where she comes from, and what this main house is? He has no idea. It would probably be easiest to ask her, but she's beautiful and has the ability to get along with people. At the same time, she is the best according to the results of entrance exams, versatile in sports, and also the daughter of a noble family. As a result, Kuan in just a week not only headed the class cast, but also became the top of the cast of the entire academy. She is called the angel of this school. They live in completely different worlds. If he suddenly talks to her, she will definitely suspect something is wrong. Then, he will definitely become a laughingstock in the class. That night, he activated the perception blocking magic skill, so Kuan most likely does not even know who he is. Maybe he should really forget about that day? Shu was thinking about how to forget it, when suddenly Rintaro called out to him and asked why he suddenly froze. The protagonist apologized and waved it off as sleepiness and such. So what did he say? Rintaro started talking about Kuan and asked if she was okay with her injury. The protagonist thought about it, and then noted that she herself said that she just twisted her ankle, so it was probably okay. Besides, for them, talking to her was like dreaming about something impossible. So there was no point in thinking about it too much. Rintaro awkwardly agreed with him. From his words, it became clear that he was able to come to terms with it only after saying it out loud. Unlike Fujisawa, she was not suffering from some kind of crime, so maybe he shouldn't interfere. Suddenly, the protagonist's watch began to beep throughout the room, and Rintaro asked in fear, "What was that?" Shu awkwardly looked at his classmates and apologized. It was the sound of his watch breaking. The student exclaimed in surprise, saying that the watch was broken. How noisy. Kuan looked at the protagonist and thought about it, hearing a familiar sound. The girl asked her if something was wrong. Kuan apologized and said that she needed to leave for a while. After a few seconds, Shu picked up the watch and said, "Finally stop beeping. It's in worse condition than he thought." So, is he charging 3,000 yen? Rintaro politely declined, when suddenly Kuan came up to him and called out to the protagonist. Shu asked in confusion, what was wrong? She apologized and asked if he could give her some time after school today. The protagonist looked at her awkwardly and said that everything was fine. Kuan put a note on his desk and said that then, after school, she would wait for him at the place indicated on the note. The protagonist picked it up and looked around the classroom, noticing the displeased looks of his classmates. He thought that it seemed like he had gotten himself into something troublesome. Sometime after school, Shu approached the room indicated on the note and thought that he somehow managed to get away and come here. It turns out that there is a literature club at this school. The protagonist opened the door of the office and apologized for intruding. He stood frozen at the entrance and thought about what he should do now. Should he also take off his shoes and sit in the Caesar pose? And what was the purpose of this meeting anyway? Kuan bowed and said that he saved her last night and she was sincerely grateful to him for that. The protagonist looked at her questioningly and thought how she knew that it was he who saved her. Kuan added that it was all because of the wristwatch he brought today. Exactly the same as the one who saved her last night, and also this alarm. Shu looked at his hand excitedly and thought that he had set the alarm on that watch to go off when the perception-blocking magic wore off. And it seemed that, at the moment when he teleported in a hurry, she only managed to see the watch. Kuan wondered if that guy from last night was him, right? The protagonist resigned himself and thought that since things had gone this far, there was no point in hiding it. He also had questions for her. He agreed. He was there yesterday. She called him here just to thank him. If she just wanted to thank him, she wouldn't have called him here so boldly. So she had another reason for calling him. Kuan thoughtfully said that it would be unfair of her to hide something from him, so she wanted to ask him to exterminate the demons that were nesting in this city. She bowed and asked him to lend her his power. The man was sitting at the bar, grumbling discontentedly about how this boss dumped all the work on him every day. He couldn't stand it anymore, and someday he would show him. Suddenly, a girl sat down next to him and asked if he was alone here too. Would he mind if she kept him company? She was in a complaining mood today. The man awkwardly agreed with her. Meanwhile, in the literature class, Shu asked in confusion, demons nesting in this city? Kuan said that it is said that since ancient times, there were many demons in this country, and they fed on the fear they gained from harming people. In this way, they expanded their territories, and in order to resist them, some people gained special powers. They are called exorcists. Kuan is a descendant of one of these exorcist clans and fights demons every night. Currently, a powerful demon that escaped from the seal is hiding in this city. She does not have enough power to defeat it yet, so could he help her save this city? Shu thought in confusion. Is this world really so full of fantasy? Kuan exclaimed that of course she will also pay him a reward. The protagonist used appraisal magic and information appeared on the system board. She is about 16 years old. Considering the past incidents, he thought he would be able to find out more. But it seems that this is all that can be found out. He thought that she is not lying, right? Anyway, Kuan is a being from the same fantasy world as him, so she knows about his abilities. Shu agreed and noted that he would help in any way he could. Kuan happily asked if that was true. She thanked him and asked if she wanted to check, just in case, he was human, right? The protagonist agreed and added that of course he was human. Kuan asked then how he got such a power. Shu was confused and said how to explain it. After a while, he told her everything that happened to him, and she asked if that meant that 2 years ago, he got a strange power from some mysterious alien from another world. The protagonist said that in short, that was true. He asked her if she knew about the gas explosion that happened 2 years ago at the middle school. Kuan agreed and added that it made the news at the time. She was confused and said that it seemed like 2 students died, but that was not true. That day, all the students in the classroom received abilities from a mysterious alien from another world, and everyone except him was dragged to another world. Why he was the only one who survived? You could say he was just lucky. Kuan whispered, abilities and another world. Shu added, that's the kind of story that sounds suspicious. She thoughtfully said that it was hard to believe at first, but after seeing his incredible power, she couldn't say that it was a lie. Besides, his power was vital to them now, so she chose to believe his story. The protagonist smiled and thanked her for understanding right away, because it made things easier. Kuan pointed to the image of the demon and said that it was an Ushioni, a demon that was currently hiding in this city. The protagonist thought about it and noted that he had heard that name somewhere before. Kuan added that they would also prefer not to advertise their existence. Shu interrupted her and asked, so they needed to find and destroy the Ushioni before it caused any harm and panic started? Kuan agreed and apologized to him for imposing so many restrictions. The protagonist thought about how he had already been prepared for something troublesome to happen the moment he came here. Besides, if everything she said was true, he should be able to handle it. Shu asked if she had any leads on how to find this disguised Ushioni. Kuan replied that she had already sent out Shikigami all over the city that could detect demonic auras. No matter how the yokani disguised itself as a human, it would still be a yokai and would not be able to completely hide its aura. The protagonist wondered if she was suggesting that they destroy it. Did that mean she already had some kind of plan? Kuan noted that her Shikigami could only determine its approximate location, so it would take at least a week to find the Ushioni. The protagonist stood up and asked if she felt this demonic aura. Could she immediately let him know? Kuan looked at him in confusion and noted that it was possible. Shu asked her to let him know as soon as she found something. Kuan asked what he was going to do. The protagonist looked at her and asked what to do. It was obvious he was going to quickly finish off this monster. Meanwhile, the girl and the man were walking down the road. She called out to him and asked if he wanted to go to her house. The man looked at her in shock and asked, "Is she serious?" The girl noted that it was the first time she met a person with whom she found a common language so easily. So maybe they could spend this night together?